Hey Omar, what are you doing?
I am watching this new show about robots that are more than meets the eyes. Oh, look! And they're robots in disguise! Apparently, our cartoon intros in the past used to tell us what the show was going to be about. And now they don't. Now they've been minimized. What used to be a minute and a half of an intro is now about 10 seconds. So we're going to talk about why on the panel. Okay, guys, we've talked about cartoon intros in our show for the last couple of years, and our favorite ones. That's not what we're talking about today.
Wait. That's not what we're talking about today?
No.
We're talking about X-Men.
Rob didn't do his homework.
That doesn't surprise me. I wanted to talk about what happened to the cartoon intros that we did love, because a lot of the ones that we mentioned were about a minute and a half long intros, right? Mm-hmm. And they told the story of what you were about to watch. Now we have barely any of that. If it's anything, it's all instrumental, right? For the most part. Yeah. But I wanted to talk about the history of how it all went away and why, and what the reasons were really why they kind of went away.
So, but let me explore your premise here a little bit.
Go ahead.
When you say tell you what the whole series is about, are you talking about the G.I. Joe style intro where a guy with a deep voice comes on and says G.I. Joe,
America's hero?
Yeah, task force fighting Cobra, blah blah. Or, Transformers, where Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces.
Right off the bat, you're like, Autobots, Decepticons, got it. And,
but,
they transform.
But at the same time as those shows, or He-Man, which is the best example of this. I am He-Man. Let's take 3 minutes.
Well, I think the best
how this works.
All of these work though, like Voltron. Mask. Mm-hmm. Even the instrumental long ones, you like Robotech, right? It's nothing but an instrumental minute-long song, but you still got the gist. Oh, he's a pilot. Oh shit, the plane transforms into a Veritech fighter.
Gummy bears bouncing here and there.
Well, that's got words. And I love that you went from Robotech to Gummy Bears. Thank you, Tina. That's why you are in the show. So let's talk about a little bit of what happened, right? So that was when we were growing up. 80s, right. 90s, Ninja Turtles, and things like that.
And keep in mind, as we've discussed before, that was still kind of experimenting with the format, because in the early 80s, that 30-minute advertisement was a new format still, and they were trying to figure out the sweet spot for how to present it.
Well, they took a damn long time, like a decade, figuring things out. Like, if I did that at my job, I'd be fired.
Well, I think it's slower then.
But then, cartoons, and I think a lot of it had to do when we had the Cartoon Network, right? Cartoon Network came on board, and a lot of the intros that we were used to seeing...
Well, first it was Nickelodeon, and then Cartoon Network.
Well, no, like a lot of the intros that we were used to seeing, when they were showed on Cartoon Network, I noticed the first thing that went, was we got a shorter version of that intro. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what happened here? It was interesting.
Cartoon Network would do their own,
and eventually
cutting intro kind of thing.
Because anime is notorious for having a minute and a half long intros, right?
Yeah. The Toonami
to this day
character,
One Piece.
And then when Toonami came around with Cowboy Bebop and all these other shows that they were doing, they shortened it,
and they were like, let's make a rap song.
And I think a lot about... Yeah, let's not talk about that. I think a lot of that has to do, which makes sense. It's a new company, or a newer company, and they were trying to get ads, right? You cut the intro, that gives you 30 seconds, which means really nothing to a lot of people, but 30 seconds of ads means a lot more money.
Well, but I'm curious there, though, because you're also importing the property directly. This isn't like Robotech, where it's been entirely recut for American audiences and American expectations about commercials. How does the 30-minute show play in Japan versus how a 30-minute show plays here?
You mean like as far as commercial breaks?
Vastly different.
Yeah, because I think they have one break, if anything.
One break. So usually one break.
I'm sorry, depends on what station it comes on.
It really depends on what station, what they're doing it for, because they have anime shorts that are like basically filler to fill in spots where commercials in America would be. So they have like 1 to 5 minute filler.
So you never got natural breaks in America.
Like you would just get a cut, and then there would be a random cut.
There would be two. So sometimes there's two, like Slayers, for example. You'll have what are they called? They're called cards, I think. So bumpers. There you go. Thank you, Dan.
We are familiar with those.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Where Goku's like,
So they have bumpers, basically, so it cuts it seamlessly. Well, seamlessly. So you can look at how many commercial breaks there are in Japan by these bumpers that show when you just have them on film or VHS back in the day.
The same can be said about American cartoons. I mean, we had them with G.I. Joe, we had them with Transformers, we had the We'll Be Right Back.
The Transformers.
Yeah. So I think Cartoon Network is part of the reason why they started going away.
Well, that was what I was getting at.
And that was before. We're not even talking streaming. So we're talking the years 2000, 2002,
late
2003.
90s, early aughts.
Even in the late 90s with their own programming like Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Laboratory, they were still doing their own intros.
No, so with Dexter's Laboratory, if you're looking at like Cartoon Network shows, I think historically, even like Cow and Chicken back in the early 90s, they've kept it about maybe 40 seconds to 30 seconds.
Still longer than most of the things they have
Which
now.
Steven Universe now is 22
I was gonna get there.
seconds.
I was going to get there.
But
so.
I digress. So I think it really follows the whole stream on TV shows and everything. They're looking at how can I get more revenue. The shows now that we used to watch, like General Hospital and stuff like that.
Nope. You watched it. Okay.
Well, no. So
Remember, Tina's an old lady.
I like how you went with General Hospital of all the cartoons.
If you look at those shows were longer because they had less commercial breaks. And progressively, as we have gotten, further along.
You mean the soap operas?
Soap operas and everything.
I think that applies across the board.
Across the board.
Every type of show has a shorter intro now than they used to.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And I keep thinking back of Lost. Right?
Yeah.
Lost is, I think, to me, is the epitome of what most of our intros have gone to. It's just the words. They don't even have a musical score. It's like Lost, and you're like okay, I'm gonna watch this. This looks interesting.
Netflix,
well,
it's like,
and,
pom pom.
I mean, but it's also changed how TV is created, though, in the sense that, like, have those opening, like, 3 or 4 minutes of the show is like you've got credits running at the bottom of the screen of
absolutely
that's what they did with with Cartoon Networks and things like that. I have a different theory on why this is occurring.
Do tell, Rob.
Okay, so my theory is that back when we were watching cartoons, there wasn't that much else to do. Like, if you wanted to watch He-Man, you had to be sitting right in front of your TV at 4 o'clock, and that's it. If you weren't there, you're going to miss it, right? So they didn't have to worry about, let's make sure our intro is short so we can get more content. Here's a minute and a half of intro. Here's a minute and a half of outro. We don't need that much stuff in the middle, right? Now, as time progresses, there's more cartoons to watch. Well, how are we going to keep kids' attention? Let's forget about really long intros. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes and things like that.
Don't you think that you would want to reintroduce a kid to He-Man every time? Because in the comic books they wanted to do that. In comic books they wanted to give you a page of these are the X-Men, these are their powers, enjoy the show, enjoy the comic, right? And that's what the intro itself did. It's not like streaming, and we'll get to that in a few minutes, but now we have streaming services. Back then though, a kid that's new to the show, you wanted to introduce the kid to the show, right? You wanted to sell them on the product, and that was the hook. The hook was the intro. The hook was, hi, I'm He-Man. My friends call me He-Man.
In the 80s and 90s, sure. In the aughts, where we get things like the internet, and then the mid-aughts, we get things like smartphones.
I think that's a good point.
I think, and it also depends on what style of show. Because back in the 80s, we had shows where it was not just a standalone, cartoon. We had a series arc. We had, an actual exploration of a theme going on.
Wait,
and so you had to
You're saying that's a thing that happened in the 80s and 90s?
Well, yes, in some part, because a lot of shows.
G.I. Joe had 2 parters, okay?
A lot of shows now, like
More than meets the eye.
It's just one episode and done. The storyline has completed. There's no.
You're saying there's no overall arc?
Yeah, but that is
for most cartoons.
Really?
Now.
That's most cartoons.
Now.
It was unusual for a cartoon to have
continuity,
series-long arcs. I mean, like Transformers would have a
Mysterious Cities of Gold,
have a 2 or 3-parter. But there was no continuity
other than
between,
Robotech.
I mean,
I think some
Anime. A little different.
I mean, how many times did Megatron forget that Starscream was an asshole?
You fooled me for the last time.
My point would be kind of a melding of both of yours. So for an animation studio to have a minute-long intro, that's great because that's something that's already been done. They don't have to put money into it.
Yep.
And
it's
so
cheating.
It's basically cheating. It's just like when you could pick out in the old cartoons, the same running. You're like, this isn't even part of animated for this this episode. They've
The
used
shot
it
where
from something
He-Man
else.
walked forward. Like,
Yeah, and
With
they
a different
have reused
background.
it.
Yep.
You can't fool me. He's underwater drowning. Why is he
So
walking?
it would be smarter for them to have a minute, as an intro, and then a minute for the, ending.
That's like the Phineas and Ferb intro is like 4.5 minutes
But
long.
now,
It's great.
So you mentioned Phineas and Ferb. That is one of the exceptions because that is there's a the song is talking about their summer and stuff like that, which is wonderful.
This is the longest.
And I wonder how much he had to the guys that created the show had to push for that.
Yeah,
because
I
I'm
know.
sure Disney was like, no, we're just gonna have Phineas and Ferb and throwing your platypus somewhere with like 10 seconds is all you get. Because I feel like you can't do that nowadays. That is very rare. Like I don't watch a lot of cartoons, but like Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls is really short.
Steven Universe. Do they at all even have She-Ra, right?
New She-Ra.
New She-Ra has a song, but it feels like they didn't even cut it right. It feels like it ends like I'm like,
Steven
you're not even gonna
Universe.
phase it out. As an editor, I'm like, come on, somebody didn't do
Well,
the
how
job
long
properly.
is that song? 30 seconds? 45 seconds?
Oh no, it's like
it's
20
short.
seconds of that.
So Steven Universe is 22 seconds long, and that does have a song. It kind of tells you we are the Crystal Gems. We're here to save the day, basically. And then there's Steven, Pearl, and all of them. So it tells you.
It introduces you to the characters and what they do.
In 22 seconds.
In 22 seconds,
Interesting.
yes. It has several cameos from characters that appear later.
We need to recut our intro.
So it's really fast.
Now, are there any commercial breaks in Steven
There
Universe?
are a ton. So
There you go.
when you watch an episode, like if
That's
you
1,000.
so it's in
I
a
know a ton.
30-minute block, and how much of it is the show? About 15 minutes. That lets you know about half of it is commercial.
It feels like in those years from 2000, and like I said, Cartoon Network created their own properties, Samurai Jack, and they still had a theme song. Now, it was a lot less. Now let's jump a little bit forward to like 2005. We have Teen Titans, right? Mm-hmm. And Teen Titans had the Pufiyama Yumi song,
Yeah.
Japanese group. And it was catchy. It was a minute long. Didn't really tell you what the hell the story was about, but they had a really cool
It's
intro.
really cute.
It's a really cool intro. And a few years later, after that show got canceled, about 7 years later, they came out with Teen Titans Go. That went from a minute-long song to about a 30-second song. So it cut it in half just about. Using the same kind of beats and everything. Using the same kind of song. And I wonder, like, what was there to gain from that?
More revenue from more.
Obviously. But now, my question is, now that we've gone from that, we have streaming services. What's the point? What's the point of shortening one of your intros? Like Voltron. Voltron, the original Voltron introduced you, Peter Cullen, introduced you to the world of Voltron, right? You knew what he was, Guardians of the Galaxy, or
Yeah, but I think
Defenders of the Galaxy.
to answer the question that you're asking, I think it's a fashion thing. It's a trend.
I think it is, too.
I think it's just that.
I think now
and
it's
I
a
think it's
trend
what
thing.
Rob hit at earlier, which is that you know what? Even for an intro that a kid is going to watch one time and then skip because that's what Netflix lets
Yeah.
you do when you're binging.
You want more
You
content.
gotta
less.
keep it short.
Yeah.
You gotta keep it short and punchy and
That was sadly my idea too, is that we live in a YouTube generation where if a video YouTube channels don't hook you within 6 seconds, you browse through the next one.
I mean, come on. If every intro of our show was Omar coming, hi, I'm Omar.
Guess what we're doing?
Let me
We're
tell
from
you.
now on.
Let me tell you about.
I got 4 friends
all the
together
premise
in my
of this
basement
show.
to talk
Can you imagine
about
me
current
This is
topics.
great. You should do this.
Okay, hang on. We need to recut our intro again with
This
this.
needs to be the
How is this not a thing? How is it not?
Like, we need a minute and a half long intro. Okay, so I have children, 6, 4, and 1. Obviously, the 1-year-old doesn't watch TV, but when they want to watch their random TV shows, I know for a fact if they sat down and I pushed the button and there was a minute and a half of intro, they would punch me in the face like, "Daddy, push the skip button. This is horrible." Like
Oh.
they have like they
think-
want to watch the thing.
But
and
I
they
think
wanna
it's
do
the way you raise them, because my daughters, on the other hand, like my daughter's like, we don't skip the intro. In this house, we don't skip intros. I really do think it's the way, like,
See,
you know, we
does.
do live in a generation of like YouTube videos. I wasn't kidding about that. Where the things is like,
Well, I mean,
if you don't get the hook, we have Vine, or we did have Vine
Look
for
at
God's sakes.
how they
6
cut
seconds
like
entertainment.
videos now, because they do 1 to 6 seconds. That's a cut. You got to move the picture. You got to switch it out.
Well, even videos within the video. Look at the way
Yeah.
that they're cut. We
Like,
the-
pop, pop, pop,
we
pop.
can't have
Gotta keep
natural
your attention.
conversations on YouTube at all, because those things are edited to hell. like leaving out the ums and the.
There's so much meta to this episode.
I think you're talking about a little deep, Omar.
I feel attacked right now.
I am mainly talking about the ums and likes and things like that people leave out of their videos. A lot of our stuff we cut because we get really stupid. And by we, I mean me and Rob. But that's entertainment now, and you're right. You guys brought up that point, and that's what I thought was gonna say when you said that thing about streaming. I'm like, unfortunately, that's what I thought too. Yeah. We have to have a 10-second intro because nobody wants to watch it, unless you raise your kids properly. They're like, no, in this house we watch the Office intro.
But I do think that there is room for well-crafted intros, even if they're short. You know, the new Netflix Voltron is a good example. It tells you what's going on. Phineas and Ferb was still pre-streaming when it started.
Yeah, that was on television. So
I mean,
I'm talking about shows that are created
luxuriously decadent.
Yeah.
Wow, what a way to put it. I love that. That entire soundtrack is brilliant.
Oh yeah, but like the Voltron thing, it's like, okay, here are 5 mighty lions. They turn into a big ass robot. Here are these supporting characters, and here are the bad guys. Done.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's theme song.
And you can still skip it.
You can skip it. But so it'll be interesting as my kids get a little bit older and they want to start to watch like themed things, like Voltron stuff. They're not quite there, but they're going to get there. It'll be interesting because I'm like you. If I want to sit down and watch a show, I'm going to start at 0:00 and watch the whole thing. We're not going to skip anything. And watch all the credits.
I still want to hit the damn water, splashing on the rocks in Dragon Ball Z every goddamn time I watch it. That's the way I watch.
And when I watch One Piece, I wanted to watch every single minute.
I wonder if that was a minute and a half. I wonder if that will be true 10 years from now when we realize we're not as young as we were and we want to cut time. All right, if I can fast forward.
You might die before you finish the
I need to take my back pills
if you watch the intro.
DBZ abridged.
The animation has slowly lost attention span as well. I think it's like we grew up with a minute to 2 minute, and then we started getting older, and we're like, 40 seconds, 30.
I've never had the
now
full
it's going to be
like
like.
Dragon Ball Z.
That's your thing.
I know, but how long can you watch those guys fly across the
I can't freaking watch the I'm gonna fight you. All right, it'll take.
Give it to me every time.
20 episodes to fight
I gotta get pumped up for the episode, even though I just watched the previous one.
I think to me, I'm also I do the same thing with comic books. Like, my wife was reading X-Men one day, and she's like, yeah, I didn't feel like reading that one, so I just got done with the Dark Phoenix Saga and Days of Future Past, but those next stories were kind of lame, so I skipped them, and I went on. And I'm like, no, in order to appreciate the good stories, you gotta go through the bad things. That's why when I was watching Dragon Ball Z with my kids, my brother and you asked me, you're obviously watching Kai, right? DBZ? No, we're watching DBZ, motherfucker. They gotta learn to appreciate that shit. Goku got his driver's license. Badass.
Talk about comics though, because talking about trends and how trends are dictating this, like comics are much more explainy up front now than they were when we were kids.
There's a lot of backstory.
What do you mean?
Like the whole
because Chris Claremont, you don't remember Chris Claremont's dialogue?
No, I said explainy up front, not explainy throughout the story. Whole thing. No, in the sense that every comic book you pick up now has a page of the story so far. Also, here are all the characters. Here's what they look like.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to know
is, do
they still try to sell you stuff at the back of the comic?
Oh, you mean like slip into a Slim Jim?
Or X-ray specs.
Talking about that.
Meatloaf saves hostess cakes.
So I was watching Ninja Turtles because we had the party bus with all the episodes from the cartoon. And one of the early episodes in season 2 was like, man, Leonardo, with your sword, it's really great that you're able to rescue our Master Sprinter from the evil Shredder.
You didn't learn shit.
Whatever. They use all this dialogue to explain everything. Yeah. Do they do that still in these comics where dialogue is very explicit?
I think they think that kids are smarter now, that they get it.
But and that goes to the intros
Internet.
Too. You don't have to have Peter Cullen explaining that the forces of good found these robots.
Bullshit.
And it turns out that now Voltron is needed once more.
Okay. What if I forget? I'm like, what am I watching? Oh, thank God Peter Cullen's telling me what I'm watching.
All right, so
Omar's like 80.
I have one more theory on this.
Yes, that's what's going to happen.
One more theory. When I watch certain things, I actually do not binge them. I usually watch one a night, 2 a night, whatever. I don't watch a whole bunch. If you're binging something, you don't want to see that intro. If you're watching 1 a night, you might actually want to see that intro. So, like, for me, when I watch these things, I do like to watch the intro. Same thing with my kids, because we don't watch 8 or 9 episodes at once. We watch 1, maybe 2, and that's it. So I'm okay with watching intros.
But when you have shows like
binge.
One Piece, it's hard, right? Because you're like, you watch one
here's the
episode a
thing.
day.
So anime is different. So One Piece, it gives you like 5 minutes of what happened in this prior
Well, they're all,
episode.
they're all guilty
And that
of
music, yes.
They're all
And
guilty
that's
of
true, because it's like a minute and a half of intro.
So it's Shonen that does this.
And then you really get about
And
10
then you're like, skip, come on, yes, I'm binging this, come on.
So this is why I was talking about cheating before, because One Piece is great with this. You have your minute and a half intro, your 2 minutes of this is what previously in Dragon Ball
in
One
last
Piece.
episode.
Yeah, and then the actual episode starts, and then there's huge. So,
You also skip the part where they come back from commercial break and they go over the 10 second of like, hey, I just saw that.
Yeah.
You also skip that. Are you that bad?
But, Yep.
All right.
I've got 800 episodes to watch. And I've now rewatched
Tina
One
ain't got
Piece
no time for no intro.
3 times.
Oh my God.
So I guess, what was the answer? What did we decide it was?
The answer is
Corporate
5.
greed.
the internet.
It's 42, fool. Now, those were some of our thoughts and opinions as to why these cartoon intros from the past have now gotten a lot shorter. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to check out our social media at NearMintCon. Right here.
If you take Hira or Hira
and She-Band.
Reboot, Hera, Princess of Power, question
That's
mark.
like a RuPaul's, like...
All right, 5, 4.
Still not.